So go for it.
Hi, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm here with Frank Cottle. And Frank and I, we're going to talk about a new normal in business flexibility. And we're also going to talk a little bit, Frank has got his future binoculars, or is it a crystal ball? And he's been looking into the future for us about what the future is going to look like in terms of work and the future of work. But before we dive into that, Frank, where can people get hold of you?
There are two places that are probably good for the audience. Number one, alliancevirtualoffices.com. alliancevirtualoffices.com. And second, if people want to grab information about the future of work, we actually own the trademark to the future of work.
You do? I remember you telling me that, yes.
But
you've trademarked the future.
Yes, we have. The best place would be allwork.space.
Okay.
Allwork.space. That's a publication. We reach around 8 million people a year, or excuse me, a month with that, and it's focused entirely on the future of work and the flexible workspace sector.
Right. So thanks, Frank. So you've been in the flexible working. What did you tell me just before we came on? Was it
1979?
Sorry?
1979.
Wow. So you've been around a few years, and you must have seen a few changes take place in the way that we work.
We have. When we first started, this was even before the not the advent, but the mass utilization of even the PC. So we started building buildings across the southwestern United States. Over a 10-year period, we built 42 buildings. So every 110 days, we had a new project coming out of the ground. And we did it on a joint venture with the Bell Labs group from AT&T. We put together the first commercial incidents of simultaneously transmitting both voice and data over single pair cable. And we actually had touchscreen units in all of our offices running on this system, et cetera. So we've always been a tech-driven services company. And today we're a software as a services company, servicing clients in 54 countries around the world. Wow.
It's amazing that how far you were even back in the 70s.
Well, you know, it's funny. We're using a video now. My first video system I had in 1982.
Wow.
So again, we've always felt that technology led, and that the aggregation of technology was really a very powerful tool in business. And so we've always been focused on that.
And it still amazes me, you know. Here we are, 5,000 miles apart, and we've got video. It's in color. You know, I remember the first color TVs coming out and things like that. And
sadly, I almost remember the very first TVs coming out.
Yeah. So you've been involved in flexible working, but you know, we're now talking on the 25th of March 2021. So we've been now in the pandemic is now in the UK it's now a year. So it's just past the year anniversary, where we just went into the massive global working from home experiment that a lot of us had been predicting, but never thought it was actually going to come around. So we've all now moved home. So what's going to happen?
Well, you know, it's interesting. IDC, one of the major research organizations based in Boston, in 2018, they were saying that in 2019, 2020, and that anniversary, that we would have 1.8 billion mobile workers. They define a mobile worker as anyone that worked outside of their primary workplace on a permanent basis more than 2 days a week.
Right.
Well, that's approximately a third of the entire global workforce.
Right.
So they were predicting this pre-pandemic, and we were seeing the same thing. We are in the virtual officing business, a remote working business. And so we've been seeing the migration to that model, and especially the hybrid model that people are talking about now, the work a couple of days from home, work a couple of days near home, work a day or so in the main corporate office for important meetings and things of that nature. We've been seeing that migration for the last 20 years.
So what you're saying is that because at the moment I think that there seems to be this view that life is. Someone explained it to me. There was a 2080, which was that 80% of people go to an office and 20% of the people don't. But they were the sort of the road warriors with on the planes and the wheelie bags and stuff like that. And certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, people were saying that's going to flip and it'll be 20% of the people will go to the office and 80% of the people will not walk around with wheelie bags. But
I think it has flipped, obviously, but it's flipped artificially. It's flipped because your government and my government says we must do it. Now, when government regulations and encouragement is relaxed and it's up to individual companies, we will start migrating to a more natural comfort level. I have friends all over the UK and partners in London, and they are camped in their house. They're stuck in their house.
Yes, we are. Yes.
Yeah. You can't force people or ask people even to go back to the office right now. But as soon as government regulation says, well, now it's up to the companies, and then the companies will sit down and determine with their workforce what is going to be effective for both of them, what's fair, what people want, how they can be effective, etc. But one thing we have learned as we've been forced into this situation is that it does work. And it does work for a massive amount of people. The biggest change hasn't been in working from home. The biggest change has been in management's acceptance that you can work from home, that you're just as productive, maybe more productive, that you're just as responsible and probably more responsible. All these things that management was terrified of change, they just got kicked in the ass, got knocked right through the door of change, and gosh, it works.
Yes.
It just works.
Well, I remember a year ago, people were saying, well, it won't be so productive. And now I'm reading articles that saying that people are on burnout, people are, and people are on burnout because productivity has gone up. Because in the past, the way it worked for me was that if I said to somebody, I want to meet you, because I live outside London, a city, it would be, when are you next in the city? Let's get together. And it would be 2 or 3 weeks time. Whereas now, I've just had someone come in saying, yeah, let's have a call tomorrow.
Right.
The speed and pace of business is actually accelerated.
Well, the immediacy, this is why we started using video back in the 80s. I was one of those road warriors. In my prior business, we had offices in Newport Beach, in Fort Lauderdale, in Cannes, in southern France, and in New York. And I would be regularly living in airports and living in our offices. We had apartment in our offices and moving constantly just to meet somebody. And when we started our new company, we was told this is ridiculous. It's incredibly expensive. It takes me 11 hours of flight time to get to London.
Yes.
That's a big commitment just in time, and it takes me about 15 hours total transit time by the time I get to the airports and all that sort of thing. That's a massive commitment just to meet somebody.
Yeah.
Where I can dial someone up, and we've been doing this for 40 years, and say, hey, let's speak, let's do this. And then the next time I'm in London, which happens to be about every 6 or 8 weeks now anyway, or not right now, but normally, we do get together for almost a social meeting.
Yeah.
Because we've done our business.
Yeah.
And I think this is what everyone's learning, that you can meet just as effectively. And true, it's hard to share a beer or have a glass of wine or break bread. It's hard to do that in this environment right now. That's something that's really missing, the relationship breakdown. But it's interesting, when you and I first spoke, we spent the first 10 minutes talking about cats, dogs, houses, travel, things that you would normally speak about in a first meeting, because we've gotten comfortable dealing at a distance, and that is critically important.
Yeah, I've actually learned over the last 12 months that I think that a video call is just as effective as a face-to-face meeting. Maybe I'm lucky, and I've learned.
Can be more, yeah, it really can be more so, because you generally have a more defined agenda.
Yes.
And that does make a difference, where it's hard to pull an agenda out at a lunch meeting.
Yes. Yeah, because certain cultures do different things in terms of when you would talk business. Yeah, I mean, if you're going for a lunch meeting, generally you would have booked 2 hours, and actually the time that you talk business may actually be very, very short. Exactly. But if you come on a 30-minute Zoom, it's very clear that you've got to do something in that time.
Exactly. My only problem is the camera puts on about 10 pounds. So,
well, yeah, the videos always the same with me, Frank. So in terms of the when we talked before, you were saying that the return to work would be this hybrid model. So explain to us what you see the hybrid model being. Because when you say hybrid, I just immediately go, well, it's either working from home or in the office.
No, I think one of the things that the big changes that we have seen, and we've been promoting this in our consulting side with large corporations and government for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been trying to get everybody to recognize that there's no such thing as an occupier anymore. There's no such thing as an office occupier, that there are only travelers. And we travel from one format of working to another, and from one place to another while we work. So today, you and I are each working from our homes.
Yes.
After this meeting, I'll be migrating to a larger meeting at my office.
Right.
After that, I'll probably be on the road somewhere and working from my mobile. So where do I work? You tell me.
Well, it's a good question.
I work in my head.
Yeah.
And whatever facility I need as I travel around from one mode to another, doesn't mean long distance travel. It can just be across the street. You change your mode of working now based on what the requirement is. And so everyone today is a traveler. So the systems that are used to manage travel will be the systems that we will use to manage what we used to think of as facilities and occupancy. When we talk about the total allocable overhead of a desk space in the past with a facilities management model, well, pretty soon we're going to be talking about an entirely different mobility model and allocating costs and services that way. And all the systems are in place for this. If you think of large corporations, government, et cetera, they've been managing travelers for decades. And travel is usually the third or fourth largest expense for a major company. So reimagining the combination of travel and facilities management into a single structure should be able to materially cut both expenses, and in particular, facility expense that relates to debt for long-term leases goes to the balance sheet of the company, of course. Well, that debt, if you can remove 20, 30, 40% of the balance sheet debt from long-term leases as a result of the new model, that value you drive back to the stakeholders, the shareholders of the company, has a tremendous amount to do with future growth of the business itself, because it frees up capital or allows access to capital. So these are all things that when we think about the future of work, you also have to think about the financial structures behind the way we work.
Yes.
And the changes that will be structurally in that model as well.
So in effect, we're going to move away from the big HQ headquarters office where everybody commutes in. Is the commute going to die, or are we going to commute differently?
I think in the past, companies built monuments to themselves in the form of office space.
Yes.
And the future monument that a company will build will be in its technology infrastructure. It will be who has the best management and systems for sharing and learning, et cetera, will be the benchmark by which you judge companies, not who has made a statement that they're so rich and powerful they can take the top 10 floors of the best building in town and put their name on it.
Yeah.
We're going to see a major change in that regard. We're also going to see a structural change in the space itself, and a change in the way people get to work. And you or I would be very happy working in our nice, clean homes where we have complete control of everything, and working in a nice, clean corporate office where the office, who we trust, has the same control and provides us with a beautiful environment. But damn, we don't want to get on the tube.
No, we don't.
We don't want to ride that stinking, dirty, smelly train.
Nope.
Okay, we don't want to be crammed into that thing to get to the office. So the way you'll get to the office in the future is what we're doing now. You will still go into the office for important meetings overall, or you'll go somewhere for those. But the getting to the office is more the problem than being in the office.
Yes,
and
right.
People have learned, both individuals and corporates, management, that the time spent getting to and from the office is a total waste.
Yeah.
Total waste of time.
Yes.
You can't pretend you're going to work on the train. You can, well, you can pretend, but that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
And so people are exhausted by it. They arrive exhausted. They arrive frazzled. There's all sorts of things happen. And so the more we can cut that out, the more effective the workplace is going to be. And companies and individuals are recognizing that.
So do you see a change taking place in the real estate, the company's real estate?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, we've already seen Salesforce, who have been well known for buying big buildings and
they're a monument company.
Yeah, they are, and they've already been in the process of, they're already subleasing their
we speak with large investment groups that have massive, like trillions of dollars of fixed asset portfolios, they refer to them, the buildings that they own, as well as a variety of large corporates and government. And the typical scenario is this. The client, the corporate, we'll call it, has 100,000 square feet of space, or 10,000 meters of space in a nice building somewhere downtown, central business district. Central business district access is defined by public transportation.
Yeah.
And they're going to renew their lease when it comes up, but they're only going to take half as much space.
Right.
And every one of them that I was talking to says, yeah, that's the plan. The companies that are growing massively, speaking with Google as an example, they say, oh, we're still going to be taking additional space, but we'll be taking a different profile of space.
Yeah.
And there's two things to consider. Central business district, why? What's the point? So location will be an issue. And today we're saying in the flexible workspace sector, if you're going to build a new co-working or business center, you'd better build it on a bike path, not on a metro path.
Yeah.
Because people are there's going to be more time spent working from home and near home than there is going to be working downtown. And the outcome of that, the reason people commute to the central business district is because it's so expensive to live there.
Yeah.
How many people can afford to live in central London, in the best parts of London, where the best offices are? Not a lot.
No.
So if you reduce the amount of people commuting there, and you reduce the amount of office space being utilized there, you'll see a repurposing of a lot of space back into residential. Now, this happens in London all the time. You convert from commercial to residential back and forth. Well, you'll see, instead of the ultra luxe residential conversion that had been going on with commercial space, to residential space, you'll start to see everyman conversion going on overall. And that will mean that the people that work in the cities will more likely be the people that are actually living in the cities rather than the people just commuting to them. You won't be forced to commute anymore because it's real simple. We've talked to the heads of HR from lots of large companies, and they basically say, we don't have a flexible work plan. We can't recruit talent.
Yeah.
The people won't work for them anymore. Say, no, I don't have to do that if I work for X and you want me to come in every day. No, I don't have to do that over here. So I'm not going to take your job. I'm going to take the other job. So the war for talent, which is the war for growth in business, will define the choice of the worker now as a place to work and a work structure as opposed to the employer.
So what you're saying is that there's going to be a change of structure within the cities in terms of you'll live and work in the city.
Space will be repurposed, and a lot of commercial space will be repurposed into residential space. That will drop the cost of residential space down and allow a lot of people that previously were commuting to now live within the city.
And I think a lot of shops will be repurposed into residential as well.
Yes.
And that's likely to kill the commute in some shape or form.
It will. I don't think the commute path will still be important, but the pressure on the commute path will be relieved. It'll be more of a balancing act overall, which is good for government too, because it means that facilities can be improved rather than expanded. Yeah. So the cost of that improvement for higher quality will be able to be spent rather than just on expansion.
Okay. And one final thing before we finish up, Frank. You talked about looking into the future at virtual reality.
Well, I think as we see this change going on, all we have to do is look around us and say the technology is advancing very quickly. You and I just right now could have just as easily conducted this meeting holographically as through a video system. Now, it would have been more tech, more expensive, and everything, so it's not as widely used. But we're going to see totally different meeting structures. Number one, they're on the cusp right now, and we're also going to see property companies, and I'll use our own company as an example. We sell virtual offices. Well, right now that includes facility. In the future, it will more likely include software tied to facility, and it won't be. It will be a meeting system, an in-person system, and we're seeing gaming companies right now looking at their Gen Z population maturing and saying, well, they used to spend 6 hours a day on our game. Now they're spending 8 hours a day in the office. What do we got to do? We want to keep our hours up. So the best companies at rendering, the best companies at creating environments are now looking at creating office environments and work environments as well as gaming environments, which is a massive structure. Except when you think about it, well, the next generation of people are already wedded to that technology.
Yep.
So we're going to see this comes down to repurposing. I can take 100 people and put them at 4-foot workstations in a live environment, and it's miserable. But if I put them at 4-foot workstations with a virtual headset, and now they are virtually into that environment, and they can have a 10 square meter office as opposed to a 3 square meter office or 2 square meter office cube. And now they're very happy, especially when they can meet people that way and work things around. And we're seeing the gestation of this right now. We expect to start seeing betas on a commercial basis in 2023, and we're seeing live action. We plan to be selling this type of software ourselves by 2024, 25.
Fantastic. And that, I think, is the way. I mean, I've always found that Zoom, Teams, things like that are actually quite restrictive in the way that they work, and they were never kind of really built to be used in by the number of people that are going to use them.
Correct.
And certainly the VR experience will be the next step, I certainly see.
And there are a number of Zoom enhancements, not just by Zoom, but by other third-party companies that are all in beta right now, which will radically change the way we use even a two-dimensional structure, such as we're using right now or with Zoom, that really make massive improvements in the entire experience. So we're seeing those evolve right now, and some of them are very exciting.
Yeah. Frank, thank you so much for today. It's been so insightful. I've been really looking forward to this ever since we met back in February to do the prep, and it was like you were just awesome, basically the way that you were talking about the future.
Well, thank you very much.
And thank you so much for coming and spending the time with us. Can you remind people where they can get hold of you?
Yes, they can see me at alliancevirtualoffices.com, or learn about the industry and the future of work from allwork.space, or just look me up on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for today, Frank. I really appreciate it. And safe travels.
Safe travel. As long as I don't get zapped by my computer, then I'm traveling safe these days.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for today. Bye.